That way, if we get hit with a solar flare, you realize it would only take a major solar flare to wipe out our civilization as we know it overnight. It's gone.
Oh yeah, you are correct. I'm a great advocate of infrastructure, and our Northwest power grid here where you and I both live is very important with hydroelectric dams and even nuclear power plants. The interstate road system, the highway system, is infrastructure that's marvelous. So when we lose our infrastructure, then society will go belly up, and that is probably associated with the Great Pyramid water pump failing to operate when it broke down.
Most likely, yeah. And again, all it takes is one major thing, and then boom, there it is. Maybe a civilization it was wiped out, gone. It wouldn't take long. A lot of people here don't realize if we got hit with a solar flare, okay?
Right.
The first thing is your power is not going to come on tomorrow or next week. We don't even make the power transformers. They're made, in Turkey and India and places like that, because they have no laws against, the oils they use in it, which is very bad.
The PCBs, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the case of a grid going out, it's not like, hey, I need the transformers tomorrow. It isn't going to happen. They're all handmade. So the time it would take to get the power up, we're talking years down the road. I hate to say it, people. The store's only going to have food for about 3 days. You're not going to be able to pump gas. What are you going to do? How are you going to heat your house? How are you going to do this? You can't. So you
can't. You can't run your pellet stove without electricity.
Yeah. So our whole society can collapse in a matter of weeks. Seriously. And that's what's scary.
I live in a small town, and occasionally the power goes out, and the grocery store locks the door. So, it's unbelievable how fragile our civilization is. But if we can decentralize our production of electricity, that would help. And that's what developing this ancient technology of the Great Pyramid water pump could help accomplish. Because if you can elevate water in a cheap manner, you can use that water to generate electricity. And they can decentralize electrical production instead of using huge hydroelectric dams. You can have cottage industry develop these water pumps and have them, around the community.
So interesting. So you said people have made scaled models of the Great Pyramid, but they have had to use basically pipes and stuff like that instead of chambers and all that to make it work.
Oh, certainly. There's nothing wrong with that, but the models need to be consistent with the direct physical evidence instead of putting a Briggs and Stratton engine down in there to run a water pump. You know what I mean? It has to be consistent. Some people have developed models that you may have or not seen, like on YouTube or whatever, of a water pump, but those have extra pipes that don't have corresponding chambers or passages in the Great Pyramid. So there's controversy about the legitimacy of some of the models. It's not just me. There's a number of people worldwide that are following this direction of research, contending that there's a profound link between the Great Pyramid and water. So there's a lot of people out there that are following this idea.
So what type of feedback have you been getting from your readers on your books on this?
The books certainly have reviews, and the reviews are either very good or very bad. So does that help any?
Well,
but I do. I get usually they like it or they don't. Some people get it or they can't transcend what they've already been taught. You can transcend what you've already been taught and understand that it's not true. But other people, the guy in the front of the classroom told them about the big ramp, so they don't need, water locks or Someone would say they got water in the river. They don't need a water pump. The largest water pump in the world is being built in the Valley of the Nile. So, and the High Aswan Dam is used as a keystone for an irrigation project. But people don't understand. All people know is they turn their faucet on and water comes out. That's where the water comes from. They don't know it's a whole infrastructure and everything. And they think the electricity comes from the two little holes in where the plug is. They don't know that there's hydroelectric dams and the Northwest Power Grid and all of that. People, they think their food comes from a grocery store. So people are separated from the technology that makes their world go. It's funny, and a lot of those people don't agree with my books. But the people that are car mechanics, the people that operate cranes or tugboats, people that even truck drivers that move heavy loads, those people see my research in a very positive light. So I just ask people to, the most outrageously controversial thing I can tell somebody, which is read a book. And read a book and find out. Don't ask somebody what the book says. Don't read the reviews to think you know what's in the book. Actually read a book. The burden is on the responsibility of the researcher to find out what the research is about. I can't tell you how many people come up with a scenario in their head, and then the scenario, they prove it wrong, and then they say, well, your research is wrong. And, wow, that's a hard thing to battle when people use that poor of research techniques. Like they say, well, there's other pyramid isn't a water pump, so that means the Great Pyramid isn't. You can't beat that. But there are other people that actually become familiar, watch the documentaries, read the books, and people really like it.
Well, yeah, you have to realize there's a lot of cults out there that believe like I said, they believe it was to communicate with aliens for landing zones, for navigation, to keep comets from hitting Earth, and it broke down. A lot of things, people come up with ideas through the year. I will say this, back when I was in high school, I remember my history teacher, I got actually in trouble for this when he was talking about how the pyramid was built and all that stuff. And he said all the amount of slaves it took dragging these stones from the quarry. And I said, how would they had enough slaves to build it? They would have died off from the heat, from the strain of dragging that thing. It didn't make logical sense the way I was taught how it was built. It was illogical. It's no way it could have been built the way I was being educated to believe it was built.
Right. It can't be done. Most people acknowledge it, but they still teach college level in universities that have departments of Egyptology that all this stuff with no demonstrations about precision stone cutting. They've never moved a heavy stone around the corner of a spiral ramp. They've never moved a heavy stone on or off a barge without handling scars. It's just a huge story that they've come up with. And Egyptology is arguably the richest science in the world, with their priceless artifacts and museum space and ticket sales and sponsors, that you would think that they would be able to fund a demonstration of what normal people, working people, they say, were able to do all day long, making casing stones or moving heavy stones, but they absolutely cannot engage in the scientific method because their explanation of these things is literally impossible.
Oh, yeah. I've through the years, I've seen, videos, things on, PBS where, they tried duplicating, building a pyramid. And you hear of this person, sitting there demonstrating how it was built. And then halfway through it, they kind of like gave up because their technology worked to a certain level but then after like halfway of the height of the pyramid, they couldn't complete it the way our technology it didn't work.
They generally move stones that are 1.5 tons, and they have people pushing on them and grunting and levers and stuff to show us how 70-ton stones were moved. So there's kind of a, it's just, I know you know the example, but that's like saying I could pick up a full-size car and show you how I pick up a full-size car by picking up a Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think that's a very good demonstration, but it's the same issue that Egyptology has with their demonstrations. In fact, watching on the National Geographic and those documentaries on TV that are produced by Egyptology is keeping you from knowing what really happened. Egyptology is detrimental to understanding the Great Pyramid.
Sometimes I wonder if they give out disinformation purposely. I do. If you really keep up with it, it's stuff they say. It doesn't make logical sense.
No, I mean, it is disinformation. There's no doubt about that. But you just wonder if they're just telling the story that they were told, or if there's a nefarious purpose behind it. But if providing disinformation always has a nefarious purpose in and of itself, if you're a lover of truth.
Well, I don't know. So the question I have again for you, okay, as they brought these stones up through the canals, right, and unloaded them by moving the people to the front of the boat or the barge and all that stuff, and then back to offload the stone, then how did they place the stone on top of each other to get the height of 400 and some feet?
Well, the construction process went like this. The first stones, this is a very abbreviated explanation, but the first stones that were set in place were the casing stones for the first level. So that would make like a square wall on the construction site. Well, the original builders were able to fill that square wall area with water. They impounded the first level of casing stones, impounded water, and that pond on the Giza Plateau was connected to the series of water locks from the Nile River all the way up to that pond. So they were able to bring the stones on barges effortlessly from the Nile to the building site and inside that pond. And then the interior stones, they would lift off of the barge and then set them into the pond. And that would be the process used to complete the first level. Then they would place the second layer of casing stones on top of the first layer. And the way they would do that is they would use a very specialized barge that was kind of like a forklift, if you will. And our video series on our website at thepump.org describes this in detail. This would pick up the casing stone, if you will, and be very similar to a forklift. They would lash the stone to the barge, and the barge would hold it just on the edge, if you will, the back edge of the casing stone, and then that barge was about half filled with water. Well, they would siphon the water out of the barge over the side of the pond, and then they could lift the barge and the stone. So we think that these very specialized barges had two compartments, one in the back for balance, and then the main one for buoyancy. So they would have a counterweight in the back, if you will, very similar to a forklift. And then this pond is only waist deep, so workers standing in the pond would move this barge with a casing stone hooked onto the front of it right up to where it